Gita by her mother and aunt at a very young age. And professionally, she is actually a teacher. And as a teacher, she noticed her faith was not always presented clearly in schools. In 2000, Nandarani Mataji was awarded the Farmington Fellowship, a scholarship awarded by the University of Oxford on the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is her life's passion, and she's also the founding head teacher for the first Krishna Avanti school. So we are very, very fortunate that today we have Nandarani Mataji, who is going to share her knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, and that is her passion, she said, and she's been a teacher all her life. She is my teacher also, and I really look up to her for guidance. So it's great that we are having her today. Nandarani Mataji, welcome to Chad, and thank you for agreeing to conduct this session. We are all looking forward to hearing from you. Over to you, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mother Kumari Mataji. So, ladies and gentlemen, today's verse is chapter 2, verse 6 from the Bhagavad Gita. And I'll just recite it, say the translation, the purport, and then just give a small talk on that, some small realizations. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nachai Chitvido Vidmaha Katarana Gariyo, Yat Vajanaya Yadivano Jayatyo, Yaneva Hatva Chachichna Shamsas, Devashishta Pramukhe Datrastraha. No translation, nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live, yet they are now standing before us on the battlefield. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Arjun did not know whether he should fight and risk unnecessary violence, although fighting is the duty of a Kshatriya, or whether he should refrain and live by begging. If he did not conquer the enemy, begging would be his only means of subsistence. Nor was there certainty of victory, because either side might emerge victorious. Even if victory awaited them and their cause was justified, still, if the sons of Dhritarashtra died in battle, it would have been very difficult to live in their absence. Under the circumstances, that would be another kind of defeat for them. All these considerations by Arjuna definitely proved that not only was he a great devotee of the Lord, but he was also highly enlightened and had complete control over his mind and senses. His desire to live by begging, although he was born in a royal household, is another sign of detachment. He was truly virtuous, as these qualities combined with his faith in the words of Sri Krishna, his spiritual master, indicate it is concluded that Arjuna was quite fit for liberation. Unless the senses are controlled, there is no chance for elevation to the platform of knowledge, and without knowledge and devotion, there is no chance of liberation. Arjuna was competent in these attributes over and above the enormous attributes of his material relationships. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate. My dear Krishna, you are the friend of the distressed, the source of creation. You're the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya. Vancha Kalpatarupyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaiva cha Patitanam Pavnabhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita, Shri Gadadhar, Shivas Gaura Bhaktavinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Thank you so much for inviting me today. I I seek your blessings from all of you that I may say something relevant and pleasing, and somehow or another that we will be enlivened through this process. So today's verse is clearly a dilemma for Arjuna. He is overcome because he has two issues right now. It's about making the right decision. And if Arjuna makes the wrong decision, he's actually saying, either decision I take, it feels like I'm going to be a loser. So in some ways, Arjuna feels like he's stuck. He's, even though the kingdom belonged to him and the Kurus snatched it from them, he still has this family relationship. And no matter what they've done to him and his family, there's a side that there's there's an emotional, but also there's a moral duty of care that he doesn't want to go into battle with them. Even though he could win, he doesn't want to fight them. The other thing is that if he did go into battle and he did win, he doesn't feel happy that he would actually be able to, enjoy the kingdom, not knowing that his family had died, even though they were the perpetrators. So one of the things that Srila Prabhupada says in the purport is that Arjuna was the devotee of the Lord. So even though he was born in a royal family, in a royal dynasty, and he was born to fight his dharma. So in Arjuna's case, because he was a prince and his duty was to protect the kingdom and defeat the perpetrators, the demons, those who violated the principles of peace. And he was also there to be a protector for all the citizens. Now, that was his duty. Our duty may be a mother, or you may be a child, as a child. Every single one of us have a duty, whether you're a husband, whether you're a wife, whether you are a colleague. We all have duties, and none of us can get away from that. It just happens that Arjuna's is that he's a warrior. So for a warrior, dishonor is worse than death. So he's in a position where he's got to fight. Yet in his head, he's thinking, I've got to make this decision. Now, Srila Prabhupada says that there are some key aspects that when you are stuck and you don't know how to make a decision in life, then it's very, very important that you do a self-checking analysis. And that analysis is about your body and mind. How much control do I have over my mind and my senses? So the senses are always impetuous. They are, the tongue always wants to say something. The tongue always wants to speak. The tongue wants to taste good things. We want to smell nice things. We want to hear certain things. The tongue, the belly, the genitals, all of that, that is driving our existence. And if that's not well controlled, then there are issues. So Srila Prabhupada says, well, Arjuna did have control of his mind and his senses. The other thing was that if we're checking in with ourselves, I suppose the question we have to ask ourselves is, how well controlled am I in my mind when I'm stuck in something in life, when a tragedy happens or a difficulty happens, or I've got to make a difficult decision in a moment? Have I got my wits about me? The other thing that another self-checking mechanism is, what's your integrity like? What is your Certainly in Arjuna's case, it was like Krishna, Srila Prabhupada is saying he had virtuous qualities. Virtuous qualities means, I suppose, what are the values that we stand for in life? Despite all the odds, are we willing to stick to certain values of nonviolence, peace, kindness, compassion? So Arjuna has got all these qualities because if he didn't have these qualities, he wouldn't even be thinking, he wouldn't even be having a second thought, especially after what the Kurus had done to him and his family, constantly humiliating them. The Kurus tried to kill them. Kurus tried to take their kingdom away from them. I mean, what wasn't thrown at the Pandavas? And then finally, the other self-checking mechanism is that, do I have faith in the supreme God? Do I have faith in Krishna? Now, the false ego often, our state of consciousness is often very much dominated by the false ego. The false ego is the animal brain that keeps telling us, I know better, nobody needs to tell me. I can depend on myself. I can come to the decisions myself. I can, I can't trust others, but I can trust myself. Now, when our false ego is dominating, our false ego is the side of our brain, the animal brain, that's telling us, you want to eat this? Go ahead and eat this. You want to do this? I don't care. It's my life. I can do whatever I want. Go ahead and do that. The false ego is our constant companion and troublemaker. It's the side of our consciousness that is like an animal consciousness. And the more we're in that level of consciousness, the harder it is for us to actually have control of our mind, checking in our values, and also in terms of our faith, having faith in Krishna. Now we can say, I don't see Krishna. I don't know who Krishna is. I've heard about Krishna, but unless we have this desire to see Krishna, because after all, we're talking about having access to the spiritual world, the spiritual realm, because we're the super soul. The super soul transcends race, class, gender. The super soul is eternal. The super soul has an eternal relationship with Krishna in the spiritual world. It's where we belong. It's where we come from. And yet somehow or another, we're completely disconnected. And when we're disconnected and we're stuck, this is the point where it's very, very difficult for us to make decisions. Krishna says, Prakriti kriyamani gune karmani sarvaha ahankar vimudatma kartanam iti manyate. The spirit soul is bewildered by the influence of the false ego, thinking himself the doer of activities, that he is actually carried away by the three modes of material nature. Now, people are also, our thoughts, our patterns, our integrity, how we conduct ourselves, how we see even the world is divided into three parts, whether it's sattva gun, rajagun, or tamagun. Tamagun is when somebody's consciousness is in a very, very dark place. Now, if your consciousness is in a very dark place, it's going to be almost impossible to make a reasonable, sensible judgment. And that's dominated by your emotions. So the ego has a realm, and that realm within the ego dominates certain emotions. Now, the emotions that are beyond the ego are the emotions at a higher state of consciousness that allows us to connect to the Supreme Divine. The Supreme Divine, often when we go within ourselves, when we're in the quiet moment, whether it's reading the Bhagavad Gita, or it's hearing a devotee speak, or whether in a quiet, silent moment that we experience the silent voice within our heart. It's the voice that is loving. It's the voice that's always kind. It's a voice that's safe. But often we don't hear that because we're overpowered by the mind. The mind is constantly chattering away, and the ego saying, trust me, do this, and often we end up in trouble. So coming back to our state of consciousness, and Arjuna is saying, I don't know what to do. If I take this action, I'll be damned, and if I take this action, I'll be damned. So for us, often that will happen to us as well. Every single one of us will experience that. Now, if we are in emotion, of the lowest state of emotion, where it's almost impossible to make a reasonable judgment or a decision, is humiliation and shame. If we are constantly surrounded by thoughts of shame and misery, humiliation, feeling humiliated by life, so let's say, for example, we have ambitions and we want to project ourselves in a certain way. And when it doesn't pan out like that, then often in life we can feel humiliated. I feel humiliated because I didn't get the job, or I feel humiliated because life isn't working out for me in such a way. In that state of consciousness, which is the lowest state of consciousness, it's even a lower state of consciousness than you would say even an animal, because even though we've got animals at different states of consciousness, humiliation is almost at the state of like death. Then there's shame or blame or guilt. If you're feeling despair, and in some ways, you can see that Arjuna, he's a pure devotee of the Lord, but in that moment, he's also feeling some despair, because he's thinking, this is hopeless. If I take this decision, I'm going to end up having to beg, give up my kingdom. Better I just give it to them. What's the point of going into battle? Let them just have it. We have that with children, don't we? When the siblings are fighting, and we probably all experience this, and then often the parent says, oh, they're older, just give it to them, it's okay, just give in. Or at work sometimes, we find that some colleagues are overpowering, or even in family, partners. Sometimes it's easy just to say, oh, just give in. So here, there's a point where Arjuna is at the point of feeling helpless and hopeless. And when we get to that place of emotion, there's a level of despondency, because we can't see any way out of the challenge. So, but there is a way out, because Srila Prabhupada says to us in this purport that unless we control our mind and senses, unless we stay true to our values and our virtues. So it's not that my values and virtues are different in different settings. So let's say, for example, I'm in a corporate setting, or wherever it is, my values, my standards will be different, because it's okay. So even for at work, for example, let's say I'm using a pencil, and nobody's going to miss it. It costs probably 5p, and I put it in my pocket and I come home with it. It's about your state of consciousness, that what are my values and what are my virtues, and finally having faith in Krishna. So faith in Krishna comes through guru, having a teacher, somebody that you can trust, that you can speak to, that they've seen already, they've experienced the light, and they can share it with you. Or sadhu, a devotee, someone who's been through similar challenges that you may be going through right now that you can speak to, and certainly Shastra, which means the Bhagavad Gita. What's amazing about the Bhagavad Gita is that it was spoken 5,000 years ago. So not much has changed. You know, the human challenges continue. You know, the challenges of making a decision, the challenges of having loving relationships, the challenges of making the right decisions, the challenges of how do I overcome my suffering, the challenges of life when you feel like you've been hit by a bus, the challenges of feeling let down by people, the challenges of feeling cheated, the challenges of not being able to trust. So all of these things, you know, they're not new, because if Lord Krishna is talking about them 5,000 years ago with his devotee Arjuna, you know, the Bhagavad Gita is critically something that we should all be taking very seriously, whether we're children or whether we are, you know, at any stage of our life. Now, some people will say, well, you know, I'm following lots of different routes and different paths. And Krishna says that's okay. Everyone will follow whatever they want to. But the truth, the truth when you're exposed to the truth, particularly in the Bhagavad Gita, when you're hearing the Bhagavad Gita, often there's something within your heart that tells you, because it's a connection to the super soul. The super soul is Sachidananda Vigraha. It's eternal, it's all-knowing. And what happens is when we hear the truth of the Bhagavad Gita, there is some transformation within the heart where we know, okay, I already knew that. I don't know how I knew that, but I already knew that. So Arjuna is in this state of despair. And how do we get out of despair, even within our own lives, whether, something's going on in the playground, something's going on in the family, something's going on in the business, something's going on at work, and we feel absolutely hopeless. It's almost like, you know, either I walk out and I just let it go, or I fight, and I don't fancy fighting because I don't want to hurt other people. So there is one way out of this, and that's finding courage. And later on in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna will speak to Arjuna and say, you know, why have these, why are you so in this feeble position? And so how do we find courage? Courage means, for Arjuna's sake, you know, when he's out in the battlefield fighting, it's when we're at a state of consciousness where we have courage, it means that we can take the right action. Courage is not the same as I'm going to have a fight and I'm proud and, you know, I'm demanding and I'm going to show them. That's not courage. Courage from a place of humility, where we feel empowered. And this is what Srila Prabhupada is saying. Again, I'm going to repeat it to you, that when you are stuck in life or there's a challenge like Arjuna, there's a sense of hopelessness, you know, which decision do I take? Which path do I go? Because if I'm, you know, I'm willing to beg, and that's a loss anyway, because as a Kshatriya, he'll be half the person he is. So that's the other thing, you know, why are we here? What's our gift? What's our talent? What's our contribution to this world? If we're not contributing to the world in terms of the gift or the talent that we have, and only we can know that, because that is between us and Krishna, then there's a sense of death for us there as well. And then there's killing the Kurus. Well, that's a loss because there's an attachment that, you know, they're relatives, and is it really necessary to kill them? But Srila Prabhupada is saying, you know, control your mind and senses, have the right qualities and virtues, and have faith in the instruction of the Lord. So instruction of the Lord also means consulting Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. It also means that we're never alone in this world. You know, sometimes when we're going through the most difficult times in our lives, it can feel very lonely. And here Krishna is saying that, you know, having faith in the words and the instructions of Krishna is that Arjuna has a relationship with Krishna. We can have a relationship with Krishna through the devotees, through the Bhagavad Gita, through our own endeavors. That actually, I mean, how can we develop a relationship with God if we don't desire it? So that's the first thing, that we have to desire to want to have a relationship with Krishna. So the verse 1866, Sarva Dharma Parityajan Mamekam Sharanam Braja Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshami Ma Sucha. Lord Krishna says, abandon all varieties of religion, just surrender unto me, and I shall deliver you from all sinful actions. Do not fear. So this is actually on closing. This is probably one of the most profound verses of the Bhagavad Gita, that when we don't know how to make a decision, it's you know, one of the most valuable things is to actually surrender to Krishna and say, Krishna, I know you're in my heart. You're in everybody's heart, but I know you're in my heart. You're all around, and you are a person. Please reveal to me what it is what I need to know. How can I, in this difficult situation, where I feel like I can't even wake up the next day, or I don't feel like I can cope the next day, how can I overcome it? And somehow or another, when we start asking the right questions, or we start desiring the right things, then Krishna will reveal that to us. And when we get to the place of courage, then we can also transcend further up to a state of consciousness of being neutral. When we're neutral, we're more open to not being triggered, not being so emotional, but to be more rational. And when we get to that point, when we get more neutral, what we're doing is we're opening our heart up and allowing the Lord to guide us rather than the false ego. So on that note, I'm going to go back and read the translation for you. Nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live, yet they are now standing before us on the battlefield. So I'll just close there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nandarani Mataji. Thank you so much for this wonderful class. If there are any questions that the participants have, please you can unmute yourself and ask questions. This is a great opportunity to ask questions to Nandarani Mataji. Mataji, if I may, if nobody else is asking the question.
Sure.
So my question is that, yes, we take the guidance from Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. And still the problem sometimes is that it isn't necessary that there is one right thing. Because there could be other right. It's not like it's not black and white. So what does a person do then? Because you're still so confused, and your heart keeps saying, yes, this is also okay, but the mind says, no, this is not okay. What do we do in such circumstances?
Thank you for that question, Madhukumari Mataji. Um, Often the challenge for us is our anarthas. There may be certain things within our heart that we haven't been able to resolve in our life. So let's say, for example, I suppose different situations will require different decisions, but sometimes the ego and the mind have a vested interest in an outcome, and it might not be the vested interest, it might not be in your highest good to make that decision. So that's why when it's difficult to make a decision, it's because there's a conflict within ourselves. There's the one side that says, so I mean, I'll give you a very simple example. I want to go on a diet, and I don't, I want to, I want to eat the right foods. Let's say for argument's sake, but then I decide that the next day, what do I do? Do I not eat, but I'm hungry? My blood pressure is high. I'm not feeling very well. What do I do? So, that's a dilemma. There's a vested interest, isn't there? The vested interest is, do I look after my blood pressure, or do I continue with the eating? And so there's got to be a higher, what's the word? There's got to be the higher cause. So the higher cause may be, well, actually, you want to lose weight, but you've got to look after your health first. So do you see what I mean? So sometimes it's a form of elimination. If you're a parent and you want to raise your children the right way, you want to support them, but when it comes to, let's say, for example, giving them independence, it's very difficult because you're not sure if you can actually trust them, or whether it's actually you don't trust yourself, that things will probably go pear-shaped. I'll be a bad parent. So there are always dilemmas, but I think you always have to see which is the highest priority, and sometimes we put it down to health, safety, emotional well-being, but I think the bottom line is, when you are conflicted, you have to ask what that conflict is, and only you can make that decision, because ultimately Krishna gives us free will. So he always gives us that little bit of choice. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, ultimately Krishna says, I have told you all of this, and now it's up to you. You decide. So at some point, we have to make a decision. It might be the right decision, it might be the wrong decision. Sometimes we don't want to make the decision because we have to take responsibility for it. Because if it goes pear-shaped, we're going to have to take the responsibility. So there are numerous reasons why we will find it very difficult to pin ourselves down. But it's something that requires, here, Srila Prabhupada says in the purport that Arjuna had clarity of mind. So clarity of mind also comes in by what you're eating, by what you're feeding your mind. What kind of are you watching too much TV? What are you reading? Who are you hanging out with? All of those things will have an impact on your decision making. I hope that helps, Madhukumari Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Yes, Falguni.
Mataji, I think you already mentioned this in your previous question, but when you mentioned about the control, the senses, the senses, how they lead us to sometimes take a decision, or they kind of control us, and they 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 make you do things may not be right for you, or the senses, and between the senses and the mind. But there is also sometimes the decisions, like your heart draws you in a certain direction as well. So is it senses equals the decisions of the heart, or just when we say senses we just mean, um I don't know, I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah, no, let me see if I can try and answer that, Falguni, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, Mahadavakini Nirvapanam, Shaya Kareva Chandrika Vitanam Vidya Vadu Jivanam, Anandam Buddhi Vadanam, Pati Padam Purnat Swadanam, Sarvatma Snapanam, Parama Vijayata Shri Krishna Sankirtan. So the Sankirtan movement, the chanting of the Hare Krishna movement, is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. So what it does is it clears the dirt within the heart. Now, the ego, depending on the state of our consciousness and what's within our heart, we don't know what's in our heart, Falguni, because we don't know how many lifetimes, what we've done. Krishna's so kind that we don't remember our past lifetimes, because if we did, we'd probably go crazy. So when the soul transmigrates from one body to another, to another, to another, it's taking all that, all the past conditioning with it. So the challenge for us is that the more we work on clearing our heart, and we're told through chanting, right? The more we're chanting, the more we wake up early, we chant, we think about the right foods, we think about the right environment, the right association, then our decision making will be more clear. Now, the heart is an emotional place. So if we are highly emotional, then you think, oh, it's all coming from my heart and I'm feeling this and blah 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 and what have you. And some of it could be what we call sahaja. It's like fooling yourself, because it's capricious. It's it's like you're pretending, oh, I'm so, oh, I feel so great about this, and actually you don't, but you're just saying it because you're fooling yourself and you're fooling others, but deep in your heart and that's because of our anarthas. Our anarthas. Now it's really hard to go within, because it's so easy to see other people's issues. When someone is being capricious, you can see that straight away they're being duplicitous. Even if they're trying to fool you, you can see it straight through. So people can see that about us. So the heart, we will express what's going in from our heart, what's actually going in our mind and our ego. The less we are dominated by the ego, which competes with God, really, that side of us, that it's the side of us that chose to be independent from God, then if we are not so dominated, then the purity within our heart will be emotional. And you know how you can tell, Falguni? It's not the words you tell people. It's not if I say to you, I love you, Falguni. I really do, and you have to believe me. It's not what I say. It's not how I do it, but it's just being in the presence of that person. You know the truth. They don't even have to say anything. So do you see what I mean? There's an emotion you're feeling, and the emotion you're feeling is love, peace, trust. But it's not because so it's two ways, from the heart, the dirt and the dust will come out emotionally, but the good will come out. But it's like, which emotion do we want? Do we want that pure emotions of love, peace, and joy, or do we want the capricious emotions of pretense?
That's right.
and envy and greed and jealousy, you
Yeah.
know, because envy is always there.
Yeah.
So, you know, lust, anger, greed, they're the sitting places in the heart.
Yeah.
So it depends what the emotion is, where it's coming from, you know. And
That makes
sometimes
sense.
we have to, the hard work is actually sitting and just facing within ourselves, um, you know, what's going on within my heart.
Mm.
And the best way is that when we see things in others that we don't like,
Yeah.
it's actually mirroring within us. But then we've
Mm.
got a chance, Falguni, to clear that, you know,
Yeah.
because you just say, thank you, you just showed me something, I'm
Mm.
triggered by you. But I'll go away and see, okay, when did I do that? You know, when was I a bit fake about things? When did I lie about something? You know, when did I yeah. Anyway, I don't need to tell you all because we all live it, you know, all of us live.
I think it's so very well put, Nandarani Mataji. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Um,
you.
Thank you, Nandarani Mataji. I have got a question on the chat. So Leena Mataji is asking, Hare Krishna Mataji, how do we find Guru? I know it's a long, I know it's a huge answer, but if you could just briefly guide everybody who's on the call, how
Yeah.
we can find a Guru.
Okay. Well, Lena, that's such a great question because we all need a guru in life. You know, we all need somebody who we can surrender to, who we can trust, and who will guide us. Because this life is full of duplicity, challenges, confusion. Now, the way you find a guru is first you have to pray to Krishna and say, please, Krishna, can you reveal a guru to me? Now, Srila Prabhupada tells us that if we want to be cheated, we'll find a guru that will cheat us. Yeah. And if we're really sincere, then we'll find a guru that will really help us. The best way to find a guru is somebody who, let's say, for example, like Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada for us is our Jagat Guru. You know, so you start with Srila Prabhupada. You start reading his books. You know, you start reading the Bhagavad Gita. As you're doing, Leena, you're attending these chat sessions. You know, you're asking questions. See what Srila Prabhupada is saying, and then as you are, the more and more you are reading, the more and more you're associating with devotees. One thing is that we're told that there are many gurus. You inquire submissively, you ask questions, and then within your heart you will know who is your guru. But it's not a fashion competition either, because when the time comes, if you ask Krishna to reveal the guru for you, then Krishna, leave it to Krishna to send you the guru. In the meantime, surrender to Srila Prabhupada through his books, and the devotees who are speaking through the books, and continue asking questions. Because the more you know, Leena, the more knowledge you have, the more you'll be able to assess who's your guru. Because guru isn't just going out for a shopping, a guru is it's somebody who promises to help you to go back to Godhead, to give up this life of birth, old age, disease, death, duplicity, anger, greed, jealousy, all of those things. And you have to find that it's not in that guru. So that's, I hope that helps, Leena. But I think from what you're doing right now, carry on doing what you're doing, Leena. And, speak to devotees like Madhu Kumari Mataji. There are other senior devotees here on this group, like Divya Gaurangi Mataji, Kushangi Mataji, Bhagwati Devi Mataji. I'm mentioning these names because, you've all got access to each other on the WhatsApp. So, maybe you could take some time and speak to any of these devotees. Kushangi Mataji is a very, very senior devotee. She has been in the manor for so many years. why don't you send her a WhatsApp, Lena, and have a further chat with her? I hope that helps.
Thank you so much, Mataji. There is one question. Sorry, yeah, there's one question. So the question is, how can we let go of the feeling of guilt from the past? Say, breakdown of relationship or whatever. So how can we let go of the feeling that we have hurt somebody and we were very unfair to them?
Yeah, okay, that's a great question. Who asked that question, please?
They want to stay anonymous, please.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine then. Thank you so much for asking that question, because the question is a really powerful one, and actually it's relevant to all of us. Guilt, guilt is a very healthy mechanism to enable us to it's our own kind of check, isn't it? Check and balance. I've done something wrong, and I want to right it. Now, depending whether that person will accept it, repentance is always the first thing. Repentance, having a healthy regret. Now, the danger, if you have guilt, when the ego jumps in, it will keep you small, and it will keep you stuck, and it will keep you feeling terrible, like, I'm terrible, I don't deserve it, I hurt that person, I'll never be able to make up for it. What is done. And so that's the first thing. We have to say, we can't live in the past. It's happened, it's done. Now I have to do something about it. So the first thing Lord Krishna says, and Srila Prabhupada says, is that we have to have a healthy regret. And that regret is through repentance. Now, in fact, I'm going to share a prayer with you. If you have a chance, then you should go to that person and you should say, I am very, very sorry. Please forgive me for what I did. And it's up to them whether they forgive us or not, but that's the right etiquette. So repentance is one thing. The other thing is try and serve them. Now, depending if the relationships have totally broken down, then within your heart, you must, have a genuine repentance, and then forgive yourself and move on. I hope that helps.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Jolly.
I'm just thinking about doing something about it, you just said, but I'm also picking up about the conflict that we carry every day. Yeah. And so we have conflict. And take, for instance, if your colleague is suffering being victimized, and you try everything Krishna conscious way of being, and you try to not intervene because it's nothing to do with you, but be nice to that person, and the person, you can feel their pain because it's an everyday occurrence. How does one deal with this? How does one be compassionate and make it better for the other person in a way? So
yeah, that's a really great question, Jolie, because I can identify with that. Sometimes when we see other people struggling, they're being bullied, or there's conflict going on, you want to protect them, you want to stand up for them, you that protection thing in you comes up, right? You want to take over, and you just want to just make sure they're okay and they're safe. But if they're an adult, sometimes it's very hard to fight other people's battles. But what we can keep doing is just be loving to them and enable them to understand that they have a choice, because this is what Bhagavad Gita is all about, that ultimately we have a choice. Now, if somebody has a victim consciousness, then they will attract those experiences, or it could be karmic, Jolie, right? We don't know, because there's a big part of karma that we can't see. And I don't mean it in a punitive way, like, you know, a punitive way would be you're being, you know, you're suffering because you deserved it. That's a terrible thing. Krishna would never like us to say anything like that. But we don't know what are the reasons why they're attracting that. But what we can keep doing is just being a good friend and empowering them to make the decision. But if they, whatever decision they feel they need to make, but it sounds like sometimes it ends up being more disturbing for us than them. And that could also be that, you know, there is something within them that they're not able to do something about it. Either they feel powerless, or they don't want to change it. It's very difficult, Jolie, except you just have to be a good friend. And hopefully, you know, and empower them to make the decision of whatever they need to do. But even for them, one really great thing you know, I would suggest is that every day they go home and they say to that person who they feel victimized by, I'm so sorry. Whatever I might have done to you, please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And to keep saying that in a prayer to them, because, you know, remember that all difficulties come because of the body, but the soul, the eternal soul, the spark, it knows no friends, it knows no enemies. So when that person says this prayer, I'm so sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you, I don't know why this is happening to me, I don't know why you're angry with me, I don't know why you're doing this, then somehow or another, Jolie, when they say it from their soul and they speak to the soul of the other person, and they do it genuinely, you know, that's one strategy that the enlightened sages say. But there's something, I'll just share a prayer with you. And I know some devotees know this prayer because I shared it yesterday in the Bhagavatam class. And this could be even for you, Jolie, because when we see other people suffering, we feel powerless. So if you have, everyone have a moment, if you just take a deep breath and just make sure your feet are down on the ground. And as you're breathing, just take in the words, my dear Lord, I admit I'm powerless in this material world. Without you, my life is impossible to bear. Your power is greater than mine. Only you can restore me to the truth of who I'm meant to be. I turn my will and my life over to your care. I promise to search fearlessly within myself. And I admit to myself, to you and someone I trust about the anarthas or the wrongs that I've done. Please remove the defects of my character and remember fearlessly that all troubles relate to the body, not the real me. I humbly bow to the dust of your lotus feet, that you remove all my shortcomings. I will recall and note all those that I've hurt, and I'm willing to make amends to them all. For today I make a note to all those that I've hurt, and I admit straight away. I'll focus even more on my sadhana, my prayer, and to serve others, and to serve the devotees. I pray that you will give me remembrance, knowledge, and understanding, that I will carry your message, your mission, and follow these principles. Help me to remember how much you love me, and that I'm capable of loving you in the same way, and to be friends with all those around me and the devotees, to serve them and to be compassionate to all. I hope that helps, Joni.
Yeah, it is very helpful. And I'm thinking also, I have tried thinking about what is it in me that attract this kind of you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
way of being. And also, I also thought of the karma, but I'm thinking, why should I think that way? Because we all carry karmas anyway. But this is real. I witness it quite regular, and I'm thinking,
Yeah.
the powerlessness is so strong that you know, because you know, you think of authority and punishment, and then the shame and blame afterwards and all that can come into it. So anyway, yes, I am trying, and it's not easy, but we witness it quite a lot in the workplace, as you probably know.
Yeah, you know, I think the other thing, Jolie, is that, you know, Krishna doesn't want us to be, you know, part of being a devotional devotee is that you are not a doormat, you're not, you know, a big part of functioning as a devotee is being very intelligent. And sometimes it could be mediation, because, you know, we're, you know, trying to find out what's going on, what's upset you, because clearly when somebody is angry about something, there's a reason. So sometimes it's mediation, sometimes it could be, you know, ultimately that person has a decision to make, and they need help to make that decision. We can't make it for them, but they may need the support. And when we have people vulnerable, then it's our duty to support them in the best way we can. But, you know, it's a very tricky situation because, you know, some people don't like to complain, but there is a complaints procedure. You may even have to follow that. I don't know. You know, ultimately, it's really Krishna is putting us in a situation, according to the Bhagavad Gita, is that when we are, again, I'm just going to repeat, Jolie, you know, the conclusion that Srila Prabhupada says in this particular verse, that we ourselves have to be of a sane mind, our values and our integrity. We have to work out what our values are. And only you can do that when you go away in that workplace, because you know what you're doing and you're witnessing. And then also pray to Krishna for help. Remember, Krishna is always there, and we have to ask him for help. Unless we develop that relationship with Krishna within the heart, he's always with us, he's in the heart of everybody, then he will help. You know, they always say if you don't ask for help, Krishna can't interfere. Krishna won't interfere because he wants us to approach him, you know, because we want to. And that's one of the things about love that, you know, if in this whole question that you're asking me, Jolie, ultimately it's that connection. It's about our connection with Krishna. It's about connection with our higher self. And we can only do that by asking for help. If we're feeling helpless, then we have to ask Krishna. And he then will reveal to us what it is we need to do. And sometimes we'll have to be fearless. And sometimes we'll have to have the courage. And sometimes if we're not, if that person isn't, and it's paining us, then we may have to raise a concern. It may be that the other person is going through some mental health issues. It may mean that the other person isn't quite a perpetrator, that other person needs help, you know, but it really depends, you know, it depends on our situation and what we think we need to do in that situation, you know, not to be hard-hearted and walk away, or is it that we need to be detached, but only you will know what to do.
Yeah.
But ask Krishna for help.
Yeah, Haribol, that's
Haribol.
really helpful. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Jolie. Thank you for that lovely question.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nandarani Mataji. It's almost 9 o'clock. I think we can end the session, but we've all enjoyed your session so much. And so we pray to you that you please come back to enlighten us again. And thank you very, very much. I'm sure all of you have also enjoyed. We'll just say our prayers. Vancha kalpatrubhascha kripa sindhu pevacha
Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki
Ki
jai.
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 Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Everybody, thank you all.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you.
Thank you,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna,
Hare
everyone.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Lovely
Thank you,
class.
Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, everybody, for your wonderful association too.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hari Bol.